woke up to some frigid weather here in North Carolina, which is affecting a little bit our building plans, but like always, we are going to build something for you guys. But yes, not a very pleasant day for us today. Here we are in our messy garage that we plan to start working on organizing fairly soon, and we are depending on our little big body to bring the temperatures up in our workshop. It is 52 degrees in the garage with 52% humidity because the air outside is saturated after the snowstorm. So not ideal conditions, but we are going to make it happen today for you. Good morning, friends. We took refuge in our garage because, as we've shown you outside, it is not a very desirable place to be today. Even the garage is actually kind of chilly, but we're warming it. We have an electric heater on and we have our big body on. So hopefully within a few minutes, we will have a nice warm area to work in. Today it's me and Mrs. DIY, and one of the plans for today is to get rid of some of our scraps. One of the things I learned from having the shop for 4 years in the homestead is that it is a good thing to have scraps, but at some point they become too much, right?
Agreed.
So you have a hard time going through all of them and finding. So for both space and trying to organize the garage, we try to get rid of our scraps. So today will be a scrap project. You are my favorite viewer, and this is going to be a very fun episode.
Here's the third set of hands, but it's actually paws. So he's the supervisor. He's going to help keep us on track today.
He's more of a hindrance than a help. But okay. So today we're going to use 4 outcut pieces from our last project like this, and we're going to build a planter stand like this. So these are remnants from our chessboard build from last week, and just looking at them gave Miss DIY a great idea.
It was great, was it?
Well, let's see, can we implement it though, right? We'll probably have to cut a few more pieces this dimension, but we do have more to do. We have more scrap.
Yeah.
But let us get it a little act together because we're flying by the seat of our pants. Like usually, we do not have any drawings or any 3D CAD designs, right? Mm-hmm. We just have an idea and we're going to try to implement it. So stick around.
Sounds great.
So we're going to start using a measure just to get a general idea of what we want, but we'll only use the first piece we cut to cut any subsequent pieces, right?
Right.
We do not like to use the measuring tape for continuous cutting because that introduces error and messes up with our what it messes up with?
Continuity.
No. Consistency. The same length, you know. We are actually more accurate when we not use a measuring tape, right? In the past, we used to use a measuring tape and all our pieces were of different dimension.
Yeah, it happens.
And they don't need to be off by much to create a mess. So we're going to cut something around 9 inches.
Right.
This piece around 9 inches. And we're going to need 4 pieces that dimension.
Right.
And then we're going to do a little bit of a dry fit and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
So here we are doing our first cut. So now that we have our first piece, we'll see if we can use this. We may or may not be able to, right? Mm-hmm. But we need 3 more of these. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 pieces and we're going to use this as the measuring stick.
Right.
So we're going to do that and we're going to be back with you. So let us show you how you cut 2 pieces the exact same length without measuring at all, right? First, you bring the 2 pieces together and you make sure that they're flush here at the end, right? On the edge. Now you move the piece that it is longer and you bring your blade down just a smidge more, until they're the identical, right?
Yep.
And then you cut. So now we have our 4 legs and 4 extra pieces, which we may or may not be able to use. We don't know yet, right? But we're going to do a little dry fit and figure out if we can use them or not.
Okay.
Alrighty. Now, again, we use the first piece we cut to make sure that all our pieces are the same length, right?
Right.
And that is the best way to make sure that you're consistent with your cuts. That's the word I was looking for earlier, consistency, right?
Right.
So consistency is important, especially in a project like this. It will not be huge. Any inconsistencies will be visible, right?
Right.
So, in fact, the smaller the project, the less forgiving it is.
Yeah, because it'll be immediately apparent that you don't have things that match.
Right. All right, so let's do a little bit of dry fitting and see what we're going to come up with. So here's the general idea of what we want to build. Of course, this is not going to be in the bottom like you see it here. We're going to raise it maybe, a couple of inches?
Yeah, maybe a little more than halfway.
I mean, the idea is that we're going to put a pot in here, right?
Right.
So, and we're going to use just screws and maybe a little bit of glue, but primarily screws to put this together. Again, we are limited with equipment, but this is definitely, the cuts we've done now could easily have been done using a handsaw.
Yep.
We use our table saw because we have it and we have it here. So the next step for us, should we assemble this first?
I think that's probably a good idea so that we get that precisely how we want it rather than, one leg and one cross piece at a time.
All right, excellent. This does not need a tremendous amount of sanding, but it needs a little bit. And it looks like we might need a new blade for our chop saw, huh?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Then this is not exactly furniture, but it will be in the house. So you decide how you want it to be, right?
Yeah. And we're making a dimension that uses the wood dimensions that we have. But you could make this much taller, and it could be, let's say, on a patio to hold your plant out there.
And also different diameter. We use the diameter we already cut wood for, so we don't duplicate and waste effort, right?
Right.
Or material for that matter.
Right.
So what Mrs. DIY doing now is just knocking off all the fuzzies from the cut. And there weren't much really. One cut had a little bit, but really not horrible, I don't think, right?
No. Pretty clean.
There is a label which the big stores love to have there, right? So we're putting it in front of the heater for a few moments to dry up the glue and hopefully allow us to remove it faster. Tip 1,300,589. And a little bit of heat, as you can see. It wasn't even a minute, right? How long it was, Mrs. Dale?
Yeah,
right?
it was like 60 seconds, that's right.
So a little bit of heat makes this process much faster. And you can always use a heat gun to do this, but we had the heater on, so why waste more energy, right?
Nice and clean.
Yep. So we're a little bit off. We are perfect here, and those are our small pieces, right? Mm-hmm. But it almost looks like I was not holding it very tight to the fence, and one of our pieces, only one, is a little longer, but as you can see, it is on an angle, right?
Right.
Can you put it on the other side? Is the other side correct? Can you put that on? No, my love. So with our small pieces cut and sanded, we're going to make a couple of dry fits to see how we like it, right? Because this inside diameter can change a little bit, which actually will change the overall dimension of the piece, right?
Right.
You can even have them touching, I guess, not to have an opening there.
You could.
So this is an aesthetic thing. There is no right or wrong. It's whatever you like. We're going to find out what we like, and we're going to start assembly. We're going to use a 3-inch screw because when we go here, it is actually end grain, and end grain is not the strongest grain to even hold screws, right?
Right.
So by using a longer screw, we're ensuring that we're going to have a good hold. A single screw which is the only thing we can put on these pieces, right?
Right.
Will allow the pieces to rotate. So we use a crack clamp that has the nice white circular clamp points
Yeah.
to hold the two pieces together both while we're drilling and while we're driving the screw, which prevents these pieces from rotating, right?
Right. They would twist around with the rotation of the drill bit.
And then your fitment might not be right.
Right.
Now, if we were on our saw, I would hit a couple of brad nails here to prevent it from ever twisting. We are not, however, so we can do it at a later time, right?
Yeah.
But it should be okay for now and will not affect the strength.
And you can see that it's very well aligned and very well secured.
And we're going to do that 3 more times. And we're going to have our self, right? That's the self, correct?
Yep.
Okay. A little creative clamping here so we can keep the pieces together. Excellent. And now we're going to use a screw. Again, if you have brad nails, it will be less critical to clamp it, but with us, we don't want them to move, right?
Right.
Excellent. So with some creative clamping and some scrap, we have decided on the height, and this scrap will ensure that the height will be consistent with all our legs, right?
Yep.
So we're going to do that a few more times, and we're going to be right back with the semi-final product. A little trick is to put the screw through in until it comes on the other side, and that will help you not have to be in an awkward position while you're screwing. More times. And here is our finished project. As you can see, you can make that in any dimension, and you can make the legs and the self thicker or thinner or anything you want, correct?
Yep.
So we wanted for this plan, and clearly we're going to change the pot. This is just not the right pot for it. But for what we made it is exactly what we wanted to build.
Yep.
Excellent. So this is our finished project. And Mrs. DIY, was that beginner, intermediate, or advanced?
I think it's pretty beginner. It's straight cuts, simple tools. We used a chop saw. Could definitely use, a hand saw, Japanese saw,
Right.
to make the cuts. It was one piece of wood, essentially, that we had already cut down for another project, so it was scrap.
Yep.
And they were these pieces were all the same size, which is perfect.
And let me show you the piece of wood that everything started with, right?
Yep.
And we have not used it all, as you can see, right?
Yep. It's a 2x6.
We used part of it to build the chessboard last week.
Mm-hmm.
We used remnants of that project to build this project this week. And should we use this to build something next week? I don't know.
Yeah, well, we can definitely try to make the most out of that wood that that's right, conservation and economy.
And while offcuts are good, I found out that after a point, you just have too many, right? It doesn't help you any. How expensive this is to build? Really a couple of dollars, right?
Right.
You can go to the store. If you want, you can buy 2x2 material.
Right.
That would be about $4, $5, not even so.
Yeah. Make sure to get them straight.
Right, I mean, that will be the only...
2x2s don't often come very, very straight, so you gotta check it out.
But all you want is the highest length you want that you can cut. So even if it is not perfectly straight, usually you can make it work, right?
Yep.
So a hand saw and a 2x2 can give you very, very similar results. if not identical results, right? Mm-hmm. So, what was the learning out of this?
Definitely do a dry fit so that you know exactly the orientation of everything you're going to use. With this project, we have 4 pieces that are precisely the same length and 4 other pieces that are precisely the same length. And so you can play with it to see exactly how you want them to meet together.
Correct. And all came out of this.
Right.
So with 4 pieces this dimension, as you can see. So in essence, it was 1 cut out of the 4 cuts,
Right.
off cuts, right? Now, what I would have done different if we had our full swap, I would have hit a couple of brad nails to keep this straight.
Yeah.
Because there is only 1 screw here, they have a tendency to rotate. So when I get to the storage, I will probably grab my brad nailer to do that. But that is a very minor thing. It can be used the way it is right now, right?
Yeah, it can.
Now, if you're very perfectionist and it is not perfectly straight, it might drive you a little crazy, but the strength is there. This is not weak, right?
Right.
I can probably step on it.
Very sturdy.
You can put a lot of weight, and that's a cool thing. You can expand this, and if you want to put something really heavy, you can put even a support in the middle. Imagine it upside down now, right?
Yeah.
So you can put something underneath to make this really very, very strong.
Right.
But even the way it is, I bet we can step on it and it will not break. So very inexpensive. You use your scrap. A good weekend project, don't you think? I mean, afternoon project. It's not even a weekend project.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, you can leave it as it is. You can paint it. You can stain it. Do you have plans for this, Mrs. DIY?
I'm thinking about it.
All right. So an hour later, our thermometer here reached 66.5 degrees and 48% humidity. And I think those little 2 heaters for a 2-car garage, that's a pretty good result, don't you think, Mrs. DIY?
Sure.
So a little bit of heat goes a long way. Heat your workshop. It makes the working experience much more pleasant.
And safer.
But for our project, for our purposes, this is the end of the project. We might stain it before we put it in use in the house. From Professor DIY and Mrs. DIY, let's build something together.